I'm just waiting for a few people to hop on, Chris. Ralph's going to share it around real quick.
No problem.
Hey, Glenn Martin, how you doing? All right, for those of you that are on, give us just a few minutes. We're giving it time for a few people to hop on, and Ralph's going to share it around so more people see it. And we'll get started in just a few. Yeah, Glenn, looking forward to it next year as well. Hey, John. Hey, Travis.
All right, we should be good.
All right, hey everyone. Welcome back tonight. You know, we had a special yesterday. Ralph, I invited Chris on. Chris helped us in Iowa. Finished up his apprenticeship and is now a judge for the association. And Chris, you want to tell us who you are? You know, about your tracking and Triple M and all that.
Sure. So, Chris Moffett, I'm up here near Pella, Iowa. This will be my fourth season coming up that I've been tracking for the public. I was doing it several years before that, just for friends and family across the states. Got Triple M Hounds and deer tracking. We currently do have a nice litter of little Catahoula pups. Throw that plug out there. But, yes, sir. No, it was a great weekend up here. I appreciate you guys making the trip up.
No problem. So, what did you think of that finish line for Jeff?
That was awesome. Man, I was happy to be able to be a part of that. Maybe the rooster wasn't quite as happy as I was, but it went great. And, you know, being able to see Jeff finish that out, it was just awesome.
Yeah. So Chris, did you take anything away from it that would better prepare you for this season?
Whew. I need to work more. You know, I don't. It doesn't matter. I don't think where you're at or what kind of seminar you go to. You're absolutely always going to take something away. I was pretty busy laying lines and running tests this weekend, so I didn't get to sit through a lot of it. But no, I tell you, being able to watch other people work their dogs and pick up little things from them, man, it goes a long way with yourself.
Oh, it sure does. You know, you don't realize just how much you can take away from watching someone else. And, you know, as you know, we talk all the time about working together and teaming up. And, you know, a lot of times some of us will just leave our dogs in the truck and just go tag along with someone else. And every bit of that's a learning experience. And, you know, I titled this tonight's preparation for the coming season. And, you know, part of that is, you know, start thinking about teaming up with your fellow trackers and networking. And, you know, of course, like I said, I always enjoy teaming up and not always running my dogs. You know, I learn a lot. The other side of that is you can learn a lot between now and season, you know, just videoing your lines and seeing you know, how your dog reacts when it's on line, off the line, you know, is the tail up, tail moving, whatever sign they may have. that you may miss, and then you watch it on video and get to review it, and you see so much more. For us, our season opens Saturday, so if you haven't done that already, you're behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I tell you, being able to run behind those other dogs on their test lines, it's so much easier to pick up on seeing all those little tells from the dogs when you're not the one that's actually holding on to the lead and following them around.
Right.
So the whole video thing, I think it's definitely something that everybody should think about or look into.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you do before season to make sure you're prepared?
I stock the beer fridge first and foremost. No, I'll go through all of my gear, make sure everything's up tight, replenish anything that I know I'm missing or is outdated, and I've already got my dog's food swapped out, got them on a little bit better food for the upcoming season, and other than that, wait for youth season to start so I can get those first few early tracks out of the way and get ready to run for when things really start getting hot and heavy.
Yeah. When does your season open up?
Youth season opens up here in a couple weeks, and then archery season here in Iowa opens up 1 October.
Nice.
The Missouri season opens this weekend, I believe, and I usually get in a few early bow season shots down there in Missouri as well.
Nice. Yeah. I had some questions come in, or some questions, comments, stuff they wanted us to talk about. And one of the things was the Garmin tracking system. There's been a lot of questions around that, and the 100 versus the 200 versus the 300, and then of course you have the Alpha 10 and all that. One thing I do want to say before we even get into depth on those, make sure your handhelds and collars are updated prior to season. I was having some issues with my handheld. I know others were, and I went on there. I have the 300. Well, I have a 100, 200, and 300, but my 300, I went on there and tried to do the update on the Wi-Fi, and it would not. It showed it was up to date, but then when I hooked it up to my computer, I was 2 updates behind. So you guys make sure you do that before you get out in the woods and have an issue.
Hang on a minute. Yeah. Let me make a note.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that topic, the 100s, it gets the job done. But one thing I want to add about that is it's no longer supported by Garmin. So as they start going out, they're being phased out. There won't be the updates. So if you're in the market for a handheld, you need to save some money. I would encourage someone, if you really want to save money, to get an Alpha 10. I wouldn't even, right now they have a $200 off for the 200, but again, it's being discontinued, and how long are they going to support it? So if you're budget minded, get the Alpha 10, and you can still link it to your phone if you need maps. But for the majority of the country, as on lead trackers, the Alpha 10 is all you need. Now, if you're an off lead tracker, I say 300 all the way. The battery life is so much better. What's the other one? The collars, talking about collars, the TT15s, they're no longer supported. The TT15Xs, they're going to be next. The TT25s is the way to go. With the standard battery, if I remember right, it's I think 40 hours battery life. Now they have that extended, which is like 120 hours. It's crazy. So if I was to recommend a new system, it'd be the 300 and the TT25 all the way. And the TT25, they don't make a mini collar anymore, so you can get that zero band for the small dogs. So that's just some stuff to keep in mind. Do you have anything
think
to add on that, Ralph?
do what now?
Do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think Jason sent me something yesterday. They're actually sending out the bundles now where you can get the mini, that I don't know what to call it, the actual name, but where it shortens up the transponder to the battery.
Yep.
Yeah, and they already have them on it now.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and you can even get the extended battery now, which makes the size of the collar about like the TT15s, but it's lighter weight. So if you really need longer battery life than 40 hours, which I don't think you do.
Yeah, I can go all weekend without needing it. So I don't know that you need it. Plus, we were looking at them yesterday, and it changes the adapt or the charging end. So it's not the same as the TT25s, the normal ones. So if you want them, we decided not to do that and just to stay with the regular TT25 so we could interchange things.
Yeah, and that 300, the screen quality or the image quality is so much better. I mean, night and day difference over a 100, and even brighter and clearer than the 300. So if you guys are in the market as season's coming up, the two I recommend is I recommend the 300, but if you're an on-lead tracker that's just looking for a solid backup, more budget friendly, go with the Alpha 10. So now, Chris, what kind of lead do you run?
So I run the climbing cord, the climbing rope, good stiff rope. I switched over to it this last fall, and I tell you, I don't think I'll ever change back to anything else unless someone could show me otherwise. But it's been great. I love it. It doesn't get tangled up, and it's been good for me.
So let me ask you this: now that you've judged quite a few dogs, have you seen differences in the lead materials and the type of leads on test lines?
Oh, absolutely. Get rid of those little cloth leads. Those things tangle up and are absolutely horrible.
What about the biothane? What do you think of the flat biothane?
I didn't see a huge problem with it. There was a few times that I seen some of the flat biothane getting tangled up and a little hard to pull through some of the thicker brush. But yeah, I got to stick with the climbing rope. I really like it.
Yeah, I have to agree. What about you, Ralph? What kind of lead do you like?
I use I got the little dogs. So I use the smaller check cords like y'all were talking about.
Yep.
Climbing cords, the hard ones. They just no problem at all. Them dogs, nothing hangs up. And they can slide right through things, and we're going under everything, so a lot of dropping and a lot of picking back up. So it does good as far as I'm concerned. And I've had the others and hated them.
Oh yeah, they just cinch down on everything. So Glenn Martin said he ordered his custom check cord from Lion Country Supply. That's where I get mine from. I know that's where Ralph got his from as well. I mean, you can't beat the quality and price. You might beat the quality of maybe some of the way the loops attach, but even then that's questionable. But you can't beat the price for what you get, for sure.
I hope I don't use mine enough to wear it out.
Yeah. So Chris,
I didn't know. He just said that they made it custom size for him. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I ordered 5 new leads today, and I ordered them in the 3/8 25 feet. Mike Aguilar said he uses the flat no tangle lead. Well, he doesn't use it that often, so he'll learn. I use the really long GPS lead, the Garmin lead. It does not tangle up at all.
Right.
So Chris, do you prefer a harness or collar?
I'm more of a collar person. If it gets real cold, up here in Iowa, I'll throw a harness on just to kind of help the dogs out if there's snow on the ground, keep a little heat in. But yeah, I switched over to just running the collar. I feel like the dog moves around a lot freer, doesn't get as hot, especially in early season with it on. Yeah, I'm just a fan of the big. I use a little bit thicker collar, wider, not necessarily thicker, but wider collar. Um, Dogs don't seem to mind it. They don't get choked up or anything like that with them. So
Yeah, I prefer a collar as well. What about you, Ralph?
Yeah, same way. It's so hot down here. I'm not throwing a vest on or anything. It's hot enough as it is.
Yeah. So Jeff Still said only reason he uses biothane is they don't freeze solid like the climbing rope does when it gets below 20 degrees here in Iowa. Is that something you run into, Chris?
actually, I don't think I've ran my climbing rope in the freezing snow. I don't think I have it sitting here. I had a little. It was like a plastic lead. It wasn't biothane, but it was something similar that I ran last year when I was doing some snow tracks. But yeah, I could see where that would definitely be an issue up here.
Yeah, that's something we don't think about here because it doesn't get below 20 very often.
No.
Maybe 1 or 2 days a year, and guess what? Most people aren't out there hunting in that, and we're going to wait till it warms up to go track. Michael Beck asked question, what collars are recommended? So I'm assuming you're talking about regular collars. I can't think of the name of that material. I just use the collars at the feed store.
Yeah, I don't.
Dayglow? Dayglow, is that what it is, Ralph?
I don't remember the name, but it's the ones that when the light hits it, it kind of charges it up and lets it glow.
Yeah,
Some of them are reflective, so I like that.
Yeah, I keep a reflective collar on them. What kind of collar do you use, Chris?
Actually, I've got an Amazon special that I put on both my dogs. I like it. It's bright orange and it's got a little handle on it for me to be able to hold on to them things, without having to pull on the lead.
Yeah.
I might have missed it. What type of dogs are you running, Chris?
I'm running a pair of Catahoulas now.
Gotcha.
Did you learn your lesson on the Bloodhound?
Yep. So, lesson on the Bloodhound, complete shoulder repair about 3 months ago, thanks to my old Bloodhound 2 seasons ago.
Oh, man.
Dang.
Yeah. You must have watched Jeff's Catahoula too much and had to get one.
Yeah, he was a big influence on that one, that's for sure.
Yeah. Brandy's been talking about those puppies. Hopefully you don't have any next year when we go back.
I see April. You might miss a litter.
Mike Alguire says easy on the slobber boxes.
Oh, I love my Bloodhounds, but I tell you what, it was night and day difference going from an old hound to running a smaller Catahoula.
Yeah. So had a few questions, or I guess you say questions, comments. Some of them I have to get on Messenger for. But one of them, someone wanted us to touch on shot placement out of a tree stand versus ground blind. And, one thing I want to say is, this is what this person touched on. They said, on your show, bring up shooting out of ground blinds compared to climber or ladder stand. Ground blinds don't have a blood trail because it's usually not low enough just to drip. So Ralph and I was talking about this earlier, and I said, one thing people needs to always be conscious about is aim for the exit. Don't aim for the entrance. So if you're higher up in elevation and you're aiming for the exit, you tend to aim a little higher. And if you get into a rut with that and now you're hunting off the ground and you aim that higher spot again, well, guess what? You're going to hit high, you're going to exit high. It's going to take longer for that cavity to fill up. So no matter what position you're in, aim for the exit. And what position the deer's in. I think you guys agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yep. I always, not said that to you earlier, I used to bow hunt a ton, and I always, an old guy that taught me how to shoot the bow, he always said in between the shoulders, or actually right above where the heart is, put like a baseball or envision hanging in the center of the deer. And it doesn't matter how the deer spins, how it's moving, no matter what it's doing, always aim for that baseball. So no matter what you do, you can, if you're elevated, well, you're just going to have an elevated shot, but you're going to do it. And it's always worked for me. It's people do, like you said, they do overcompensating way too much. And, it don't matter if it just doesn't matter. You start envisioning that ball sitting there, and it'll work with what you're saying. It's same concept. I'm using a visual in there, and it makes a difference to me.
Yeah. Chris, do you hunt?
I tell you, the past couple of years, I've been so busy with tracking that I don't hardly even hunt myself anymore. I've been an avid bow hunter for, gosh, long time. I'm not going to age myself, but yeah, long time. And it's just, I don't know, I get more joy out of tracking now than I do actually going out and doing the hunting myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, same here. So another topic that was brought up is, and this was by Mike Alguire. He sent me something that's going on in Florida right now, that is on the ballot. It's Amendment 2, and kind of, I'm gonna run through this real quick. It's basically to provide a state constitutional right to hunt and fish and recognize these traditions as a preferred means for helping manage fish and wildlife. So, you want to vote to preserve hunting and angling as a public right and a means towards conservation. So you want to vote yes on Amendment 2. But something he sent me that was really eye-opening. It says the threats are real. Efforts underway to criminalize hunting and fishing. Now, this is kind of scary right here. Hunting and fishing bans were considered in at least a dozen states in 2022. The worst of which was a ballot initiative in Oregon that would have criminalized hunting, fishing, and farming. Again, I'm going to repeat that. Would have criminalized hunting, fishing, and farming. The radical proposal missed being added to the ballot in Oregon by only 20,000 signatures. Absolutely insane. And it goes on to say, so far, 23 states have passed a constitutional right to fish and hunt amendment. Florida's not yet. Hopefully we get this pushed through. But with that said, hearing that the threats are real, as you prepare for this season, as a tracker, as a hunter, be mindful of what you put on social media. Clean up your pictures. Don't put questionable videos. We don't have to rub it in their face. The anti's face. Be mindful of what you're doing. And I know, Ralph, we've gotten more strict over the years on our network. And I don't know, Chris, if you guys have had that issue in Iowa or not.
I'm sitting here thinking, I don't remember there being an issue with any kind of pictures posted from tracking. Of course, we're on lead, so we don't get the really cool videos like you guys do down there running off lead. But the biggest thing that we have an issue with up here, of course, and I'm sure it's everywhere, is property lines. If we accidentally go across a property line, of course, someone gets a camera picture of us or something, why then it just blows up all over social media. whether it was intentional or not. So that's really the biggest issue we have as far as something like that goes.
And you guys have a unique, I say it's unique, it's just different from what we're used to where if the landowner leases the land out, they cannot give you permission to cross. It has to come from the person that leases it. Am I correct?
I can tell you about this one firsthand. I had an issue with this last year, actually. It was actually the same track that I had lost my older dog on. I was standing there with the hunter before we started, made him call the landowner in front of me to make sure that we had permission where he thought that the deer had crossed and went on to. I did not know that it was actually leased out to a gentleman being a loose term. After this guy had found out that we had gone across tracking that other guy's deer, boy, he threatened to come at me with a lawsuit to pay for his lease, and it turned into a great big ordeal. And thankfully, I was able to kind of talk my way out of it a little bit and get him calmed down, but it was a mess. So yeah, if you're an Iowa tracker and you're listening, make sure that you know whether or not that the ground that you're going onto is leased and the leasee has given permission as well as, and not just the landowner themselves.
So that brings up, another point. Make sure no matter where you are, check your laws and regulations. And in Florida, each wildlife management area has separate, different laws, or I should say laws, different regulations. And you might be able to take does at one, not the other. Season dates might be different. You might be able to track at night. That some of them they may lock the gates. So be mindful of wherever you're tracking to check the laws as laws and regulations change from year to year. So that's another good preseason check that you need to add to your list. You guys have anything else you could think of to add?
Not to that, no.
No.
Other than some, also some have the right that you can go retrieve the deer. Others don't. You have no rights unless you have permission.
So speaking of that, something else I learned about Iowa, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but the hunter can go get their deer, right?
Absolutely. The hunter has the right to go across a fence and retrieve their deer. However, with the caveat to that, you need to have some kind of blood or something there at the fence, or visibly see the deer laying out on the other side of the fence to go retrieve it.
But that does not give you the right to take a dog across that property line.
No, sir.
Yes. That was interesting. So, definitely check your laws and regulations all the way around. Another thing is some states has requirements for a hunting license for trackers. Make sure your hunting license is up to date. In the states where it's required. I know in Georgia you're required to have one. Alabama you're required to have a hunting license. Pennsylvania, Maryland, there's a bunch of them. I don't. Iowa, do you have to have a hunting license to be able to track?
Nope, sure don't.
Okay, Ralph, you got your Georgia license?
Yep.
Okay.
Georgia and Florida.
I'm not going to tell you to add to the list.
Yeah. I do have on. Well, I say that I just wrote the note to check the dates on it.
Yeah, and for you hunters, make sure you have the phone number to your dragging buddies. Oh, yeah. When we come find your deer, make sure you have your buddies there ready to drag it out for you, because I'm going to be busy and need to go on to the next one. Yeah. So is there any type of gear that you recommend for trackers in Iowa, Chris, or anywhere else?
You're going to want some good boots and some good gloves once the cold weather sets in, but just typical gear, I believe, is, as far as everybody else does around the States as well.
What type of flashlight do you use?
I've actually got a headlamp that I use. I bought at the farm store, and it's going 2 seasons now, and that thing's still rocking strong. Just some cheap headlamp. I love that thing. And then I keep a good stream light in my bag as well. Be able to reach out and look at things.
Ralph, what kind of light do you use?
I use the Coon type that what is the name of it? Same kind Jason Byers use. Cat Eye, I believe is the name of it.
Yeah.
It's got the spotlight. It's got a floodlight. It's got the laser on it to where you get out in open area or even in the woods, but you catch their eyes. You can shut lights off and use your laser to pinpoint some things, get people. It's pretty cool. I like it. A little heavy, but you get used to it.
Yeah, I tried the hard hat coon light. I just probably because I wore a hard hat for so many years, I was sick of a hard hat.
I've got the regular baseball hat one, but it's still a little stiff. It's not a hard hat, but it's still stiffer than a regular cap,
Yeah, so James Shoup says Nebo makes great rechargeable. Jeff Still says laser torch light. And let's see, looks like another seen another one for the Nebo. Yeah, Travis says gonna add a stapler to my kit for first aid, and I talked about that when we were in Iowa. I have 3 or 4 of them, and I have had to use them. Really haven't had to use them on my dogs, but I've had to use them on other people's dogs. Let's see. The O light, yeah, that's another one. I carry I like handheld lights. I carry stream light most of the time. I did buy a what kind of light was that? I think it was I can't remember. It's a rechargeable headlamp at Walmart, and I love that thing. But one thing to keep in mind with your lights, some of the light colors will not show blood. And I learned that the hard way. I've got a couple of rechargeable ones that I bought that you can't see blood at all. And I'm walking along and not seeing anything. And then the hunter's like, oh, there's blood right there. And there's a bunch of blood. And I look, I can't see it with that color light. So that's something else to be mindful of.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that this weekend about having a different color light. And it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, Travis Bozeman said super glue. That's good to have for wounds. Your staple gun. Wayne Reese asked, "What's everyone's go-to bug juice?" I know Ralph, you have your go-to bug juice. What do you like to use?
Well, mine's the tick and chigger spray, but it's the Repel in the blue can that you spray on your clothes, and the red can is for your skin. But those I've also got. I use the Repel for mosquitoes also. So I don't get ticks. If you use that spray, I just don't get them. I've used tons of other stuff. My wife's got Lyme disease, so she does. We cannot be bringing ticks home. So I make sure I went through every kind on demand, and the Repel is the one to me that keeps them off the best. And I'm
Let
in
me
the
tell you, Iowa has no shortage of chiggers. I'm sitting here in the car in the Bass Pro parking lot in Macon, Georgia, wishing I had a wire brush for my legs right now. I'm sitting here scratching.
Hey, I offered, man.
Yeah, it was too late by then. I mean, all you had to do is step out of the car onto the grass and you had them.
I think I seen Mike Aguilar comment there about the Sawyers. in the yellow bottle. I started using that, and they even make it for to be able to put on your dogs as well, just for an extra little measure if you're not running, or even if you are running like a Simparica or something. But since I started running that Sawyer's, wearing it all the time, I've had no troubles whatsoever.
Yeah, so I don't use the Sawyers anymore because I'm getting cheaper in my old age. So I go to the Tractor Supply and I buy the active ingredient of Sawyers, which is the permethrin,
Yep.
and I dilute it down, put it in a spray bottle, and that's what I use. Save a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's that Sawyer's definitely more convenient, having to mix it and all that. So my wife told me that that light I use, it's a Bushnell that I bought at Walmart, the rechargeable one. They also have the Coast. I seen someone commented there.
Hey, don't forget to go over that one comment from Mitchell last night that we said we'd talk about tonight.
I already forgot what comment was that.
That was the difference between a gut shot and a intestine shot.
Yeah, one's in the gut and one's in the intestine. No. Okay, so, and I talked about this in Iowa. Deer are just like cows. They have four different stages of their digestive system. So what we call a gut shot is typically in the earlier section of the rumen. So that's where you're seeing the bigger chunks of corn and all that. And the other types of food or grass. The other types of food and stuff that is not completely digested, that's what we're calling a gut shot. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
This guy's calling. So that's what we call a gut shot, is just early in the digestive system, and then the further back you get, what we call intestinal, you'll see more like a diarrhea type consistency. You agree, Ralph?
Yeah.
So those early digestive areas is that's what's gonna die quicker. And that's when we talk about wait times on gut shots, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think as far as us trackers, a lot of times we don't realize the difference until we're actually on the track sometimes. And, I always say, once it stops acting like a gut shot, a lot of people don't know to switch over to the mentality of the intestine shot. And, to me, how far they'll run, they'll go farther before they lay down on intestine shots versus a gut shot. And especially, when the dogs are having, at least my dogs, they have trouble on an intestine shot versus a gut shot. Gut shot's just the easiest thing in the world to them, and they go freaking ballistic on them. But when they stop going ballistic and they start seeming to have trouble, quit thinking they're having trouble with a gut shot and switch over to, okay, this is probably an intestine shot, which if you're there in the normal gut shot wait times, you're probably going to be running across the live deer if you can get up to it. And so you just got to realize just what I said. When it quits acting like a gut shot, it probably is not a gut shot. And a lot of people, especially at the beginning, and I started a few years ago, because of that, hunters can't tell the difference to me. Most of them don't smell their arrows. They'll just see matter on the arrow and they just call it a gut shot. I'm going to smell the arrow. I want to smell it. When I'm doing my phone interview, if I know they think it's a gut shot, smell your arrow and tell me what you're smelling, because that could dictate some wait times. or the urgency of which we might go, whether we go, at midnight or whether we just wait till the next morning. An intestine, I'm not pushing. I'm not going to get him ahead of people. I'm going to put him off. If it's intestine, well, the smell of the arrow can tell you a ton as far as that. I've had guys where I've tracked and I go, man, did you smell the arrow or something? I should have done it quicker, and us go back and smell it and go, crap, this is intestine, not gut. And, it changes your game plan, or should change it. And so that's the type of stuff to me that you really, the key, especially bow hunting, smell the arrow, not look at it.
Well, I had a question come in, Ralph, through text. They want to know what the taste difference is between the two.
I get my apprentices to do that. We got to ask Kay. I tried that on Kayla last year. She didn't fall for it. But and to me, intestine shot, actually, some of those, if they've dried, they won't even smell. And right. Even though you think poop or think something like that, wet the arrow. That is one of the biggest keys to, it's no different than, people talk about the scent and being wet. You can activate that scent in a second. Just wet it and then smell it. And man, it'll pop that scent right out, and you can tell right then what it is. So
do you lick your fingers after you wet your fingers?
No, I do it before I wet the arrow. Hey, I have to stop and slow down though.
So James asked, about wait times on gut shots, and this is something I talk about a lot. As far as gut shots go, it depends on the ambient temperature. It plays a huge factor in it. If I get a call on a gut shot this weekend, I'm liable to go at 4 to 6 hours. If it's December, January, it's cold, I'm going to wait, 8, 10, 12 hours. What about, what's that?
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask him how long they usually wait.
That's what I was going to ask too.
So we've all kind of incorporated Jeff's mentality on that up here in Iowa. If it's off rut, if we're not in the heat of rut, I'll still wait 20, 24 hours before I go run a gut shot track. I want to make sure it's done. I've come up on too many that were still alive. And of course we can't dispatch or run them down. So we're kind of at a loss at that point. Heat of rut, gosh, I'll wait 36 hours, especially if I've got other tracks lined up. I'll kind of push them back and make them wait just a little bit longer to be able to go out and put a dog on it.
How does snow affect your tracking?
It depends on what kind of snow we're getting. If it's the real light, fluffy, crystally snow, it sucks. If we get a nice little moist, almost slushy, wet, heavy snow, I found that the dogs do actually really good in that. In fact, we did one last year. I think we had like 3 or 4 inches of fresh snow on the ground. Couldn't see where the deer was when it was shot. Of course, you couldn't see any blood or any sign at that point. It snowed overnight after he had shot it. Went out and just kind of put the dog in the area, and the dog picked the line up almost immediately through that wet, heavy snow. Ran it for quite a while, and it showed back up on camera again the next day. But they ended up, I think 2 days later, killed that same deer that they had shot before. But I really like tracking in a little bit of wet, heavy snow.
Yeah. So one thing I want to add to on the gut shot thing is, hunters, make sure you do like Ralph said, check it, make sure it's gut, or if you see any sign of gut or intestine, back out immediately.
Yeah.
Do not go in there, because most of the time those deer are going to bed really close.
Yep,
or relatively close, I should say. Especially, I don't know what it is about hunters wanting to hunt property lines. They always think the neighboring property has bigger deer. And we see it time and time again. It's going to lay down. It's going to expire in its first bed if you leave it alone. And we talked about this last night. You push it, you're giving more of a scent trail for predators to pick up on. So we've had a couple of questions come in about thoughts on the gut check product, the gut check wipes. I don't see a need for them for what we're doing as trackers. Maybe it'd be a good product for hunters, but I just don't see a need for it myself.
Can you see
I see Kyle Carlson's comment, his question there about hounds.
I didn't see that.
Let's see. He wanted to ask why the three of us are on negative things about tracking with hound dogs with y'all's experience. Kyle, I can pull up my shirt sleeve and show you my shoulder to explain that one pretty easy. And then big old hounds, they get to going. And a lot of it, I'm sure, was probably with how I started training that dog or how I didn't effectively train that dog as far as pulling when we're on a track. But you get a 120-pound bulldozer running through the thick brush and timber. It's hard to stop them. Once they get their mindset to go, they're going to go, and it's tough to stop them. It's just so much easier with a little bit smaller dog that's not quite as hard-headed as one of them old hounds is.
Yeah, I mean, I've trained a lot of hounds and, trained a lot of good hounds. I've worked a lot of good hounds. For me, it's not so much about how they work or, it's more about the home life outside of tracking. Tracking season's only a few months out of the year, and you got to put up with them nasty jokers the rest of the year. Hard-headed. I mean, I got a wife I got to deal with that drools and is hard-headed.
She's sitting next to you, isn't she?
She is. But I will say this too: a lot of people, they get into it and they think a bloodhound's the best breed out there because it has, all the scent receptors, this and that. I have yet to see that much advantage that a bloodhound has over any other breed for what we do.
I think some of the negative stuff, probably Chris can run across. Well, he did it a minute ago. Being on lead or being off lead, that's your first negative and positive. If you have that choice. To me, I don't run on lead unless I absolutely have to. And right. As far as being off lead, I don't even know that there's a negative. They're just hound, and there is no way a human can do what these hounds can do. So any negatives, I don't know what a negative would be on it, unless you just got the wrong dog. But you better figure that out pretty quick.
Yeah, that's something I want to touch on too. People ask me, how do you get lucky and get good dogs? And for one, it's not luck. It's putting in the work, training the dogs, not being afraid to say this dog's just not going to meet my standards and letting that go. I mean, that's something I do. These dogs are a tool to me. Don't get me wrong. I love my dogs. I take care of my dogs, but if they don't produce, they're not staying. Nope. And that's the difference. I see people, I've got friends, their dogs are subpar. I've got a very close friend, some of his dogs are subpar and he knows it, but he's so attached, he won't do anything about it. So, what does he have to do? Come borrow some of my dogs. So, that's something else, you got to be honest with yourself, and, what do you really want? But the big thing, like I said, is you're going to have more time outside of tracking with that dog than you will tracking.
Yep.
So for me, I don't like the hard-headed hound in the off season. That's just my opinion, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. It's just what I choose.
I see there, Ashley and Randy had commented. Ashley, at this point, with my dog being a little bit older, my bloodhound, I could throw that pinch collar on him, and that joker doesn't care. He's just a freaking freight train. And to Randy's point, like I say, as I said there before, a lot of that had to do with his training. As I was bringing him up and getting him into the track, and it was my own fault for not instilling that from the very beginning. Once he had his mindset, it was set, and I wasn't going to change that.
Yeah, anyone that remembers my old bloodhound buddy, they'll tell you that dog did not pull. He did his first season, and he and I had a come to Jesus meeting after that first season, and we no longer had that problem again. I tell everyone, you cannot keep up with the dog. You train the dog to work at your pace, not you try to work at the dog's pace. So Kyle says, how long did it take you all to train your dogs to be off the lead? Kyle, your dog will work off lead, but I'm going to tell you there's a big advantage to working your dog on lead, especially that first season, that you are going to learn your dog better on lead than off. And if you're a newer tracker, I always recommend newer trackers to start on lead. I mean, we train every dog on lead. That transition is pretty simple. You collar condition them to return on tone, and they'll do their job. But I still recommend everyone, if you're going to track off lead, you need to put in the time on lead. And Chris probably doesn't have much to add to that because they're an on-lead state.
I'd love to be able to turn dogs out off lead. But
yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be tough for me to go there and track and not slip and fall.
I got a good story behind that one too. I literally slipped and fell and dropped the lead on Red on my older Catahoula last year, and that's when I lost her because she was hot on track and she didn't stop. Actually, I recalled her. She came back to me, and in the 2 seconds of me pushing myself up off the ground, that dog was gone, and it was 2 weeks before we got her back.
Yeah.
So you don't run a GPS on them?
I do now.
So let me ask you, do you recommend on-lead trackers to run a tracking system?
I was just
110%.
I was just figuring to say, we get a lot of people say that, why do I need the Garmin? That right there is why. Ask Mike Aguirre, lost his for 3 days a few years back.
I did the same, was it about 12, 13 years ago? I did the same thing. I had a dog slip a harness on a deer that jumped up in front of us. It slipped the harness. I didn't have a tracking collar on. Took a long time for us to get that dog back.
And even with tracking collars, now it's a fundamental 100%. I will not take the dogs off of the tailgate till my collars are synced up. And I got distracted one time. James Long came and bailed me out one day because I lost her in the woods, and I heard her bark one time, but I'm deaf in one ear, so I can't tell directions, and I didn't know where to go. And we were close to Okefenokee. Son, I was a nervous wreck for 3 hours till he got there. And you remember me calling you about it. She was 15 feet away from the deer, but we didn't know where she was, and my collars weren't synced up.
Yep.
So I make sure them things are on. That scared the mess out of me that night.
So I want to add to that, especially you trackers that travel a long ways, or I say a long ways, 30, 40 minutes to hour, 2, 3 hours, make sure you turn that handheld and that collar on about 20 minutes before you need it. Because if you travel a long distance, it takes longer for that thing to sync up. And just because you can hit the tone button and hear that collar beep does not mean it's synced up.
Yep. That is true. That's the good thing about the new collars. You don't have to turn them off as much.
Right.
I used to, before these, I'd turn them off and on, and plug them in between. I don't even take my charging stuff anymore because they're going to last the whole day, no matter. They're not going to run down in a day.
No, and Randy Duvall said this is a good point. You know, his dog was fighting a deer, and deer hooked the collar and popped the GPS collar off, and he got her 4 days back. Got her back 4 days later because he had an ID tag on it. I run ID tags on all of my dogs. I actually had an Axis buck hook Dixie. It was brand new GPS, a Garmin GPS collar I put on that day, never used. And Ralph, you came and helped me that day.
Yep.
I called Ralph. She had the Axis buck bait up, and the buck hooked her, popped the collar off. It went underwater. We had no idea where it was. She went silent on me. I called Ralph. Ralph, you drove what, 2.5 hours to come help?
Yep.
Just before you got there, she came back to us. But you know, that's a good point. You know, we always have. I have. Well, it's a requirement in Florida. Have your name, address, and phone number on your dog. The other thing, you know, is it doesn't hurt to have microchips, just in case someone finds them. They can run them to the vet and get back in contact with you.
Yep.
So, Chris, I know you said you had to go. You were able to give us about an hour. Is there anything you'd like to add or say before we hop off of here?
No, I just want to thank you guys for putting that together here this weekend up in Iowa. Big thanks to Jeff and you guys and Charlie Webb for making the trip up, and Ralph for the support from back there. I think it went great, and I think everybody is absolutely looking forward to next year.
Yeah, and Chris, I can't thank you, Jeff, Travis, Alinda enough. A week before this event, we had, Ralph, what, four or five people signed up?
Yep.
And I think it was only maybe a handful of tests. You know, by the time we got there, I think there was 24, 25 people signed up for the seminar. And I think we ended up running, 17 tests?
Yep.
We couldn't have done it without you guys. And, I really appreciate you guys stepping up. And, we kind of threw you to the wolves on that one, but we didn't have a choice, It
was good. It was good.
And then I actually got hurt on Jeff's test line when we were laying it. We were walking along, and this is something to be mindful of, trackers. We were walking along, and the grass was all about, I don't know, was about waist deep or waist high.
Yep.
And there was a trench that we could not see, and I fell down in it, and I don't know how I didn't break my knee or my ankle. It was pretty bad. And then we had to go through the pits of hell to get out of that place. It was pretty rough.
Yeah, pretty rough area to lay lines in.
yeah, that was. But I just wanted to. Like I said, I can't thank you guys enough. You guys did a great job, and Chris, I told Ralph, I'm not going to elaborate on it too much, but we ran into a little snag on a test line, and we huddled together, and we all came up with a great plan, and you were a key instrumental part in that, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you stepping up. And like I said, Travis, Linda, Jeff, we couldn't have done it without you guys. And even bigger, I can't thank the participants enough for being patient when we got behind because of all the last minute changes. So again, thank you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Kenny.
Yeah.
And Chris, if people wants to follow you, how can they follow you?
Triple M Hounds and Deer Tracking on Facebook. I don't have an Instagram or that TikTok, whatever it is. I don't have none. Yeah, I have a Facebook page, or you can follow me personally too, and the link to my tracking pages.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, Chris, and I know you and I will be in touch pretty regular now.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Good to see you, Chris.
Thanks, Ralph. I appreciate it, sir. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
You too. Brian Grove asked, when will the next finish test closest to Mississippi be? My screen went sideways on me. I would say probably the Louisiana event would be the closest to Mississippi, and that would be in February.
Yep.
Along with some of the new tests that's going to be unveiled there.
Yep. That'll be a good one. Great venue too. That's a great testing site.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have Randy Duvall to thank for that one. So if you guys haven't already, go on our Facebook page and check out the updated events. We have Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, Iowa. We have those on the books right now. And I've had several other states contact us. So keep a check on that. I will get the website updated just as soon as I can with those events. But we've got a very busy off season next year. And Ralph, season is here Saturday.
Yep.
And we still plan on doing these throughout the season, correct?
No. Oh, these, yeah. I thought you were testing. Heck no.
No.
Yeah, do these, on Tuesday nights. Heck yeah. We might be on site somewhere though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We might have to stop and take a break too, and cook some food and hang out, and
might have a deer in the picture.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right, Ralph. Well, I still have a few hours to drive home, so I'm gonna hop off of here. And
already,
if we missed any questions, guys, I apologize, and we'll go back and get to them.
We'll see y'all next week.
Howdy.
See you.